Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In the theater of global politics, Hungary stands at a crossroads, its decisions echoing far beyond its own borders. Once seen as a steadfast member of the European Union, Hungary now finds itself at the center of a debate that could redefine not only its own future, but also the very fabric of Europe. The country is poised to make a decision that could reshape Europe and international alliances for years to come. As tensions simmer between Brussels and Budapest, the world watches closely, aware that the outcome could set a precedent for other nations questioning their place in the EU. The possibility of Hungary leaving the EU for closer ties with the BRICS bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, signals a profound shift in the world order. Such a move would not only challenge the dominance of Western institutions but also highlight the growing appeal of alternative alliances in a multipolar world. Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government is challenging the EU's core principles, raising questions about the bloc's future cohesion and influence. His administration's policies have sparked heated debates about democracy, sovereignty, and the limits of European integration. Orban's narrative of a stagnant Brussels versus a dynamic East is now translating into real policy, with Hungary potentially becoming the first EU member to turn its back on the European project. This bold stance is not just rhetoric. It's a calculated gamble that could inspire or alarm other countries facing similar dilemmas. This is more than a regional dispute, it's a symptom of global realignment, with economic power shifting and alliances being tested. As new economic centers emerge and old alliances are questioned, Hungary's pivot could be a harbinger of broader changes on the world stage. The choices made in Budapest will ripple across the globe, influencing the strategies of major world powers. From Washington to Beijing, leaders are recalibrating their approaches, aware that Hungary's actions could alter the balance of power. This story is about sovereignty, identity, and Hungary's search for a new place in a rapidly changing world. As the nation weighs its options, the world waits to see whether Hungary will chart a new course or reaffirm its ties to the West. Hungary's defiance today is rooted in its complex relationship with the EU. When Hungary joined in 2004, it symbolized a return to Europe and promised prosperity and stability. Early optimism faded as tensions grew over sovereignty and cultural identity, especially under Viktor Orban's Fidesz party. Orban's government saw Brussels as overreaching, especially on issues like immigration and judicial policy. The 2008 financial crisis and 2015 migrant crisis deepened distrust, with Orban framing EU leadership as a threat to Hungary's integrity. Legal clashes over democracy and rule of law followed, with Brussels threatening to withhold funds, and Budapest accusing the EU of political attacks. What began as partnership has devolved into a bitter standoff, with Hungary now questioning its future inside the bloc. The stage is set for a radical break from the EU Hungary once eagerly joined. The war in Ukraine has brought Hungary's long-simmering tensions with the European Union to a dramatic boiling point, exposing deep divisions over the future of Europe and the meaning of sovereignty. While most EU member states quickly united behind Ukraine, providing military aid and imposing sweeping sanctions on Russia, Hungary charted its own course. Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government has consistently opposed sending weapons to Kyiv and resisted sanctions, arguing that Hungary's energy security and economic stability are at stake. Budapest has repeatedly used its veto power to block EU financial aid packages for Ukraine and to delay crucial talks on Ukraine's potential accession to the bloc. This obstruction has left Brussels and other European capitals exasperated, straining relationships and raising questions about unity within the EU. Orban frames his defiant stance as a matter of national interest, protecting Hungary from being dragged into a distant conflict and shielding Hungarian farmers and families from the economic fallout of war and sanctions. In response, the EU has withheld billions of euros in funding, citing serious concerns about Hungary's rule of law and democratic backsliding. Orban, in turn, accuses Brussels of using financial leverage as a form of political blackmail, deepening the standoff. The clash has evolved into a fundamental battle of worldviews. Brussels' push for deeper European integration and federalism versus Orban's vision of a Europe built on strong, independent nation-states defending their own interests. With Orban's Fidesz party openly challenging EU leadership and warning Hungarians of a stark choice between Brussels and ruin or sovereignty and stability, the stakes have never been higher. The rhetoric is escalating, and the breaking point may be closer than ever. Hungary's challenge to the EU is no longer just about policy disagreements, it's become an existential struggle over the soul and direction of Europe itself. As Hungary's ties with the West fray, the country finds itself at a crossroads, facing mounting tensions with the European Union over issues ranging from rule of law to migration. Prime Minister Viktor Orban, long known for his combative stance toward Brussels, is now charting a bold new course for Hungary's foreign policy. Orban has accelerated his so-called Eastern opening, a strategy that seeks to diversify Hungary's alliances and reduce its reliance on Western partners. He is forging deep economic and political links with China and the BRICS Bloc, a coalition of emerging economies that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In recent years, Chinese investment has poured into Hungary, transforming the country into a key entry point for Chinese capital and technology in Central Europe. Major infrastructure projects, such as the Budapest-Belgrade Railway, are being built with Chinese financing and expertise, promising to reshape regional trade routes. At the same time, massive electric vehicle battery factories are springing up across Hungary, further deepening economic ties with China and positioning Hungary as a manufacturing hub. Orban sees BRICS not only as a vast market for Hungarian goods, but also as a powerful political alternative to the EU's values-driven approach. He has grown increasingly critical of what he sees as EU overreach, and is drawn to the BRICS model of cooperation based on mutual respect and non-interference. This aligns closely with his vision of national sovereignty, where Hungary can chart its own path without external pressure. The BRICS push for de-dollarization and the creation of alternative financial systems is especially attractive to a government eager to reduce its dependence on Western institutions and currencies. Hungarian officials are now exploring new financial partnerships and investment opportunities in Asia, hoping to insulate the country from Western economic pressures. Orban often points to China's rapid economic growth as proof that prosperity doesn't require adopting Western-style democracy or liberal values. By positioning Hungary as a bridge between East and West, he hopes to secure both influence and greater autonomy for his country on the world stage. This strategy is designed to give Hungary leverage in international negotiations, allowing it to play larger powers off against each other. But this pivot is a high-stakes gamble, as Hungary risks alienating its traditional Western allies in exchange for uncertain Eastern partnerships. The country is trading the security and stability of EU membership for the promise of new alliances whose long-term benefits remain unclear. As Hungary stands at this pivotal moment, its future may hinge on whether Orban's bet on the East will ultimately pay off, or leave the country more isolated than ever before. In 2025, Hungary's standoff with the EU has reached a climax. Orban frames the nation's future as a stark choice: Brussels and decline, or sovereignty and stability. His government's opposition to EU involvement in Ukraine has isolated Hungary in Europe but won praise from Moscow and Beijing. The ongoing blockade of Ukraine's EU accession and the no-confidence motion against Ursula von der Leyen have alarmed EU leaders. Meanwhile, China and Russia publicly support Hungary's independent course, amplifying Orban's narrative. The US response is mixed, with criticism from the administration but support from some conservatives. Every move from Budapest now sends shockwaves through global alliances, forcing capitals to reassess their strategies. Hungary's pivot from the EU to BRICS is a monumental economic gamble. Leaving the EU would mean losing access to its single market, risking factory closures, job losses, and the loss of billions in EU funds. Proponents argue that BRICS and China offer growth and investment, with Hungary already a key hub for Chinese manufacturing. The government hopes to leverage its location as a gateway for Chinese firms, betting on new trade and financial ties. But leaving the EU's financial safety net could expose Hungary to currency volatility and higher borrowing costs. The outcome depends on the transition. A hard exit could be disastrous, while a managed scenario might allow Hungary to straddle East and West. Orban envisions a new model: privileged access to both sides, but it's a high-wire act. Hungary's economic future hangs in the balance. The prospect of leaving the EU has split Hungarian society. Younger, urban Hungarians see EU membership as freedom and opportunity. They fear isolation and a return to authoritarianism. Rural and older voters back Orban's vision of a sovereign Christian Hungary, wary of EU progressive policies. For them, new alliances with BRICS offer a chance to preserve national identity without outside interference. A Hungarian exit would be a seismic blow to the EU, emboldening Eurosceptics and threatening the bloc's cohesion. For BRICS, Hungary's alignment would be a strategic victory, giving China a foothold in Europe. The move would validate Beijing's model and signal a global shift away from the Western order. The social and political shockwaves would reshape Europe's alliances for years to come. Experts are divided on Orban's strategy. Some see it as brinkmanship, using the threat of exit and BRICS alignment to extract concessions from Brussels. Orban wants the benefits of the single market without the EU's political strings, aiming to reshape the Union into a looser alliance. Others warn that the EU may reach its own breaking point, making a Hungarian exit inevitable if core values are undermined. The economic risks are real. Chinese investment can't replace deep EU integration overnight. Critics caution that Hungary could become a client state of Beijing, trading one set of constraints for another. The central question: is Orban a shrewd negotiator, or a reckless gambler risking isolation? The answer remains uncertain, but the stakes for Hungary and Europe are immense. As 2025 draws to a close, Hungary's future is uncertain, with the 2026 elections looming as a referendum on its geopolitical path. The EU faces a dilemma: accommodate Hungary's demands or risk its first strategic amputation. Hungary could negotiate a looser EU arrangement or gradually decouple, deepening ties with BRICS and China. The outcome will depend on domestic politics, Brussels' resolve, and the ambitions of global powers. Hungary's story is a symbol of a world in flux, as nations reconsider alliances and sovereignty in a new multipolar era. The rise of BRICS in China offers alternatives to the Western-led system, forcing a global re-evaluation. Hungary's gamble is a test case for the forces reshaping our world, and its decisions will echo far beyond its borders.